Welcome to the 902 podcast, the official podcast of the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm Captain Vik, and I want to thank you for tuning in. This podcast will give you an inside look at LSO with topics and guests to discuss public safety issues impacting Lancaster County. Be sure to subscribe for highlights on news, cases, and the people working for you at LSO. You can also follow us across social media by searching for @LSO Nebraska. That's @LSO Nebraska on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Welcome to the 902 podcast. We're here in studio today with Sheriff Wagner and Chief Deputy Ben Houchin. Thanks, guys.
Good morning.
Happy Monday.
We're here to talk about tactical response unit stuff. And nobody better than Investigator Jeremy Schwarz, also a member of the LSO TRU.
Yes, I am.
Thanks for being here, Jeremy.
Glad to be here.
We usually get to know a little bit about our guests before we dive into the topic of the day. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about you? Where are you from and how did you get here?
Wow, that's a lot.
It is. It didn't happen overnight.
No, it didn't. I'm actually a transplant. I moved here to Lincoln in '97 when I left the Marine Corps and went to the university for 4 years. And then during the fall of my junior year, I did my internship here at the Sheriff's Office. So I started in November, I believe, of 2000 and went all the way up to shortly before graduation in the spring of 2001. And then I was hired with the Sheriff's Office a couple weeks later.
Awesome. So let's walk back just a little bit. So where were you from originally then, prior to Nebraska?
I'm a Marine brat.
Okay.
So I live mostly on the West Coast.
Okay.
For most of my life, except for the last 2 years of high school, where I spent it in Beaufort, South Carolina.
Okay. And was the Marine Corps always a plan for you, or kind of what were you looking at doing coming out of high school?
It was a plan.
Okay.
I actually wanted to be a fighter pilot.
Oh, okay.
But looking back, I think I was an impressionable child. My dad was a criminal investigator in the Marine Corps.
Oh, okay.
And as a young child, I would see him at work.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, here I am years later as a criminal investigator.
Right. So you had a little law enforcement influence then, even back in those days.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. So,
Awesome.
Were your folks from Lincoln?
Western Nebraska, small town
Okay.
Eustis.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We'll have to talk about Eustis later.
Absolutely.
Okay. Super.
Where is that?
About
South of Lexington.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm an Iowa brat, so I don't know all
Yeah.
those.
Cool. Okay. So you got in the Marine Corps, and then when you got out, did you decide to go into anything specific for law enforcement, or was this something that just kind of developed an interest out of your internship?
actually, before during my first year of college, I did a ride along with the State Patrol.
Okay.
Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And then during my internship, I did a ride along with the Lincoln Police Department. And then during the course of my internship, I was going out on ride-alongs with the Sheriff's Office.
Yep.
And then just decided that the Sheriff's Office was the place I wanted to be. And there was an opening, and I was very fortunate enough to be selected and hired.
Awesome. So you started probably in patrol, like most deputies when they get here?
I did. Actually, I started out on a swing shift.
Okay.
I think I came in at about 7:30 at night and worked until about 3:30 or 4:30 in the morning.
Yep. And then how long were you on patrol then before you tried something different in the office?
I was on patrol until about the fall of 2004.
Okay.
When I moved into criminal and actually worked with the chief on second shift in criminal.
Yes, you did.
Back when we had a second shift criminal spot.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. So I think you had rotated out of criminal shortly before I came in for when I was in criminal. 2006.
It was.
Something like that?
It was
Okay.
the fall of 2006. I rotated out.
Okay.
And then moved back to patrol.
Yep.
And took a second shift spot down in Hickman.
And but you've done a lot of other stuff here at the office, specialized things even outside of criminal. So walk us through, what are some of the other, DRE and some of those other things that you've picked up over the years?
One of the first specialties that I did was early on in 2003, I was selected for the Clan Lab team, so heavily involved in dismantling meth labs
Yep.
and conducting investigations on those.
Yeah.
And that kind of slowed throughout the years. And shortly after my selection to Clan Lab, I put in for TRU
Yep.
and was selected several months later. And then I was also the coordinator for all of our personal protective equipment following 9/11.
Yep.
And now as a drug recognition expert, I started that in 2013.
Yeah. So you mentioned TRU, so we're going to say TRU a lot in this episode, but that stands for the Tactical Response Unit. And you, when did you get on TRU again?
I believe it was a fall to the winter months of 2003. I know I was on the team before the Howland tornado in May of 2004.
Right. Okay. Very good. Very good. So with that, we're here today to talk specifically about the Tactical Response Unit and what it is, why we have one. But Sheriff, let's walk back a little bit. We haven't always had a Tactical Response Unit. What kind of gave birth to that, and why did we need one in the first place?
Well, it was in the late 70s, and SWAT teams weren't very common. They were mostly in large cities that could afford the tactical equipment and the training. And there were a number of incidents on a national scale that just required other agencies to look at having tactical units on a peripheral or on just an as-needed basis. And so I think it was about 1979 when we started our tactical unit. All of our equipment was surplus military stuff. We didn't have any budget, and we're able to get a few long-range weapons that, urban and rural law enforcement is so much different because we might have, a 200-yard open space to get to a house if we need to get up there, and if somebody in the house that's armed, that's a real danger. So it's a little bit different situation, and Sheriff Adams started the tactical unit back in, I think it was 79, and then it kind of just loped along a little bit until probably the mid 80s, when we started to get better equipment, and it really became what it is.
So we talked about, I think it was on probably episode 18 when we were talking with Jared Brabeck about the Bearcat. But once upon a time, there was a vehicle that you guys had used. Did we always have a deployment vehicle for the Tactical Response Unit, or is that something that came later?
No, we had an old military ambulance that we used for a while back in the 80s. It wasn't armored by any means, but it was just a vehicle to transport the team wherever they might need to go. And I think we got that in about probably the late 80s, 80, 89, maybe 90.
Right. So, Sheriff, we have a TRU team, Tactical Response Unit.
Right. Kind of an unusual name.
What was the thought process when this started? Everybody thinks of a SWAT team. Why
Everybody does, isn't it?
What's with the name?
Well, we just didn't want to be like everybody else. SWAT was what the 1960s television show was.
Which stood for?
Special Weapons and Tactics.
Okay.
And I think Lincoln Police had adopted that same name for their unit. State Patrol had the Emergency Services Unit. I think ESU is what New York City uses.
It is, yeah.
For their tactical unit. We bantered around a whole bunch of different acronyms, and what sounded cool. TRU sounded pretty cool, and it's what it is. It's a Tactical Response Unit. We talked about the Sheriff's Hostage Intervention Team, but the acronym just didn't fit well. So
we'll let people do the acronym at home. But
so we finally settled on TRU, and that was the sheriff at the time, Ron Tusing, said, "Yeah, that sounds great." So,
okay, trivia.
Very
good. Ben, you commanded the TRU team for a while.
Yes.
So how did things kind of change over the years? in your career, because you were obviously a member of the team. Were you a member of the team before you commanded it?
Oh yeah, I was on the team for probably about 26 years. I started out as an operator, became assistant team leader, and then to the commander on that throughout my career. So when I started, we'd have our tactical vests that we used our soft armor. We did not have level 3s and level 4 plates and that kind of equipment. And we did get some budget, but it certainly wasn't compared to what it is now on equipment-wise. When I took over, some of our rifles did not have tactical lights on them and things of that nature. So we ended up just as time went along, piecing things together to improve the team and kind of built it on from there.
So when you mentioned rifles, there was a time that our patrol deputies didn't carry rifles. That wasn't.
Oh no,
that wasn't a normal thing.
Shotguns were an option for deputies as far as a standoff weapon, but that was about the extent of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the only weapons that had a long range capability were assigned to the TRU.
Yeah,
the 308s
and
223s. Yeah.
Like I remember from growing up, I think that North Hollywood bank robbery shooting was kind of a big deal that I think changed a lot of tactics in people's minds as far as just the threats that we were dealing with.
Well, the Austin shooter from the tower was one of the biggest
Even
ones.
That was about 1965, 66. I remember that pretty well.
And that started some of the thinking of the tactical part because they were at such a disadvantage height-wise and weaponry-wise. And so I think that was one of the key events that started making larger law enforcement agencies.
There was a Howard Johnson standoff in New Orleans.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There was the Texas Tower incident in Austin, and then I think there was a shooting where 4 California Highway Patrol officers were shot and killed by some bank robbers that were very, very well armed, and the troopers were, armed with their handguns, and they were all killed as a result of that. So those things combined, and that's what I referred to, like on the nationwide scale, those were the things that were the kind of driving force to get tactical units in place.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad that we have to be so reactive. I mean,
Yeah,
bad things
exactly.
happen, and then we make plans and start to develop ways of dealing with those.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, that kind of brings us up to the modern day then with TRU. So compared to some of the things that it started for, how would you characterize the mission of TRU today? What kind of resources does it bring to the table, and what role does it serve at the Sheriff's Office?
Well, I think if we look back to even the 60s when SWAT started with LAPD, and then here in the late 70s at the Sheriff's Office, I think the mission has always been the same in that we always want to resolve situations, whether it's a hostage situation, a barricaded armed subject, or any situation that we're called upon, is to resolve that successfully and to minimize the loss of life or injuries to not only the person that we're dealing with in that situation, but also innocent bystanders and law enforcement that may be unseen. So we want to minimize it as much as we can and reduce any injury.
We have a hierarchy, and it goes to hostage, citizens, police officers, to the suspect, and then evidence. And those are the hierarchy of what we put on our priority list of what we as a tactical team deal with.
Let's walk through that, unpack that a little bit again. So just for people that are listening at home, so you have a prioritization that you go through of the priority that you place on certain things in an incident. So say that again. Walk us
number
through
one
what
is
those
if
are.
it's a hostage situation, your hostage are your number one priority. Your next ones are your citizens, innocent citizens, which you can really easily take care of if you get a good perimeter. You don't have to usually worry about those walking around in that. Then you come to your law enforcement personnel, and then the suspect or who the bad guy is that's doing it, and then it goes into evidence and that. And so those are the priorities you end up making sure. So as you make your plans and to determine how you're going to react and when you react on that hierarchy.
Yeah. you've been an investigator for a long time, Jeremy, and so much the same as we have investigators to maybe step into cases that go beyond either the time involved or some of the skill sets involved for a deputy working a case. I guess in my mind, I look at the tactical response unit is sometimes called for tactical situations that maybe a normal deputy either isn't equipped or isn't trained to resolve all by themselves. Is that a good way to think of it?
That's correct. And not enough manpower.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And so, you are able to make one quick phone call and start getting a lot more units and individuals with higher training, of course, but you can get some numbers there and you can kind of dominate a situation to the point where the bad guy's looking at it going, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
There's too many of them. And like time, talk, and tactics is our number one thing and how we want to deal with these situations.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about manpower a little bit and kind of the members and positions that are on the team. So what is the current staffing of TRU and what members make up our team?
Absolutely. Well, if we actually look back, our team has grown a lot over the years, and it's going to grow by one member here this week. But back in the 70s, when the sheriff was one of the founding members, they started off with 7 people. And now we're up to 15, and we're going to add that 16th person this week. And so when we look at kind of our team structure, we've kind of got the admin side or the headquarter unit, and that would be the team commander. And then we've got the team coordinator and trainer, which is the position that I now occupy.
Okay.
Followed by our K9, our negotiator, who also is our medic. And then we've got our drone pilots. And so they're assigned to kind of the admin side or the headquarters side, and then we've actually got the operators or the tactical side, and then that's facilitated by the team leader, the assistant team leader, and then the operators that are on the team.
Okay. And even amongst the operators, I mean, they have different jobs or specialties for certain things, whether it's breaching or other things. Can you talk about those positions at all?
Yeah. So each member has a specialty within the team. So we've got folks that are snipers, long-range observers. We've got members who are trained in breaching, whether that be manual, mechanical, explosive. We've got members who are trained in less lethal, that can take distraction devices, chemical munitions, specialty impact munitions. So they're trained in that. And then we've got other members who are trained with
The shield.
the shield.
Yep. And one of the things you need to remember, a lot of these individuals, they're all trained to do a lot of these different things, but we have people who are specially trained that are in their instructors that can teach the team, so we don't have to go outside on these areas that our people can do that, and that they are experts in those fields.
Yeah.
But all the tactical team members are able and know how to properly use distraction device or chemical agents or things like that, because you don't know who's going to be in what position and where you're going to need to be able to deploy those. So you can't just have one individual, because they'll be where you don't need them to be.
Or not be able to be there at all for whatever reason.
Correct.
Yeah, so everybody's got their first priority, but they've all got secondary.
Backup roles and things like that.
And they all do need to know, high CQB, close quarter combat skills on that, on room entry and things of that nature.
And just to add on to that, I think one of the great things about our team is the willingness of the members to actually take on instructor roles, not only for those specific areas of instruction, but they also take that and they teach the agency as a whole. So we have firearms instructors, we have shield instructors, we have CQB instructors, less lethal instructors. So we have quite a few instructors on the team.
Yeah. Sheriff, is that something new, or were those individual positions on the team, has that been, with those team members all the way from the beginning?
Well, I think from the beginning, we had a couple of negotiators and a counter sniper, an observer and a sniper, and then they just left you just a few people to do entry, and we relied on patrol deputies to help maintain the perimeter. And if we're going to have to make entry, then 3 or 4 of us were available to make entry. And so it was you didn't always need negotiators in some, and you didn't always need the snipers if depending upon the circumstances. So you just you moved around and did what needed to be done on that particular call.
Right. Well, we don't want to give away every single piece of equipment that we use, because obviously there's some things that that we keep for certain situations. But can you talk to us maybe about just the typical equipment loadout that our unit carries, and what type of resources they bring to the table for a call out?
Sure. We've grown over the years in terms of equipment. So now all the members on the team carry a level 3 vest. And on that vest, they carry various pieces of equipment that are specific to their specialties. And we gas mask, rifle, handgun, and then they carry specialized equipment that's assigned to them. And then when it comes to overall equipment for the team, we have all sorts of different pieces of equipment for breaching structures, cars, buildings. And then we also have various pieces of surveillance equipment that we can use to look inside of homes to get information and build that intelligence, so that we can successfully resolve the situation.
When did night vision kind of roll into our operations?
Probably about 5 or 6 years ago, when we with the PECs in the individual ones where each officer or deputy had one of their own and can do that. Now they had handheld ones.
We had a handheld huge thing, back in the early 80s. It was the green, and it was huge, and it was an interesting piece of equipment. It was expensive.
Right.
Pretty cutting edge technology then.
Back in 2004, 2005, actually, we got 2 pieces of equipment in criminal, and that was courtesy of Investigator Crooks at the time. He got a grant for 2 pieces of night vision, and I know that was also assigned to TRU at the time. And then years later, we realized the significant need for night vision, and thankfully we got some money through grants through our local emergency management, helped us acquire some equipment there, and then through budgeted money for additional night vision, we were able to acquire the rest.
And then, Ben, you mentioned we've got some targeting systems now too that integrate with some of our night vision equipment
the
as well.
PEC system. It's a good thing that we can own the night at this point in time, and it's a huge advantage for us to be able to do that. I've gotten to play the suspect in several scenarios with simulations, and it is extremely unfair when they come in and in the darkness, because they see you but you don't see them.
Yeah. Well, and I even remember in the daylight, one of the first things that I did when I started, it was an exercise that you guys had out at one of the lakes, and I had to play the bad guy hiding in a tree somewhere, and I was just kind of waiting for the thermal to come and find me, because it's an unsettling feeling to know that there's a team of people that are
Absolutely.
quietly stalking me. So anyway, it's very, very cool stuff that you guys have, and obviously helps you do your job in as safe of a manner as we can. Maybe walk us through, what a typical call out might look like. I hate to call any of them typical, but because they are very, situationally dependent, like the sheriff said. But what does a call out look like from the time that you guys get to call to hopefully when it's resolved peacefully?
Well, one of the biggest things we have going on right now is fugitive task force having barricaded. That's
a good example.
That's most of what our calls are, is an individual's in there and he or she is highly likely armed and unwilling to come out to be arrested.
I would agree with that. The fugitive task force, before they go out and start knocking on doors, they're doing risk assessments on each of their warrants, and we already have an idea if that person meets the criteria for a TRU call. And so when the task force goes out and they find that person and they start to show resistance, then the task force is already calling the team commander and the team leader who just happened to be in the criminal investigative unit. And from there, investigators are going out and we're assisting. And if we can't get any more cooperation, then based on the assessment that was conducted prior to, and then through additional conversations, the TRU team is activated, and then they bring all their equipment and specialty stuff to the location, and then we try to resolve it. So sometimes it's resolved within a few minutes of their arrival, and sometimes it's several hours.
Right. That's kind of an example of maybe what people think of a typical SWAT call, where we're going and talking to an armed individual or something like that, trying to get them to come out, take them into custody. We were talking just before we went on today about the Hallam tornado, and that's kind of an example of another type of call out that the TRU team has from time to time. Sometimes it's not anything to do with a suspect, but it's more to do with bringing those resources and that training and that manpower to bear on, some sort of natural disaster. What did TRU's involvement look like in the Hallam tornado, for example?
Well, I have to be honest. I was on the team at the time, but I was actually out of town. I was in western Nebraska when that happened, but I know just through talking with members and hearing everything that happened afterwards, it was essentially a rescue mission. It was bringing people to the location to try and locate residents in Hallam, and just trying to help the citizens. And that town was destroyed.
Yeah. So Ben, what is a team like TRU bring that maybe just an individual or partner pair of deputies couldn't do by themselves?
Well, one, you get a lot more individuals, like Jeremy said, real quick. There's one call out, and it's being sent to a lot of individuals. Another thing is we've all worked together, and so during the Hallam incident, we could divide up, and it was funny. We had maps made out, but when we got there, nothing looked like your map. You did not know. But our main
landmarks.
There was no landmarks.
Yeah.
It was, and the really concerning thing is with the power lines down, your head was on a swivel all the time, just seeing if anything was hot. But we went to residents. Banged on doors, yelled down through destruction just to see if anybody else was there. And with the command post, we were trying to see if people are calling in saying, "Hey, I haven't seen so and so. They lived here," and we were looking for them at that. So with that, one of the different things with that is, even though tragic, it was unbelievable that there was only one death, and we ended up working that part of it too for the coroner.
The other thing is that, going to Hallam, and I think Beatrice got hit by a tornado
we went down there
years
too.
ago, and we sent our team down there to help provide security for an area. But their uniforms are different. They're more utilitarian than our road deputies would. So, like climbing around in Hallam and in the destruction of those houses, easier to do, a little bit more practical for that sort of arrangement. And then, communications, each of the deputies, on the TRU has their communications, and they've got headsets, and they can handle those situations a little bit better sometimes than just a normal district deputy.
Sure.
If you want a challenging career, a career where you can make a difference in your life, your family's life, and the lives of those in your community, come and join the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. To learn more or to apply, visit us online at www.joinlso.com.
Well, let's move on a little bit to the selection. And how does someone become a member of the TRU team?
That's a great question. To apply to be a part of TRU, you have to be with the Sheriff's Office for 2 years. And when an opening is posted, you send a letter to the team commander letting them know of your interest. And then once everybody has submitted their names, we have a testing date where they do a written test. They do a physical fitness test, followed by a firearms proficiency test. And then once that is all finished, the team meets. We go through all of the information, and then the names, depending on how many openings we have, are submitted to the chief deputy and the sheriff with a recommendation. And then it's up to the chief deputy and the sheriff to approve it.
Okay. What's on a written test for the tactical response unit?
There's just some tactical questions up there that most officers who are serious about becoming a tactical member should have knowledge of. There are articles from the National Tactical Organization Association that we have for suggested reading and things of that. Mm-hmm. So those are the types of questions that we end up asking individuals.
So if somebody's listening at home, wants to become a deputy and hopefully member of the TRU someday, or maybe somebody here at the office that's already a deputy but wants to join the tactical response unit, what kinds of things can they do to be successful, to be selected? What are we looking for?
One is, and I think the big thing is, yes, you have to be in shape. You have to, we can teach you to shoot, those kind of things. But I think the number one thing is be a team player.
Okay.
You got to watch out for the guy next to you and not be worried about just you. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones who end up being the best members for the team. And one thing I think right now that is great is everybody who's on the tactical team now, that's their mentality. Mm-hmm. And they take it serious. Yes, you need to, you got to stay in condition. So if somebody goes down, you got to be able to grab them with, 40 to 50 pounds of equipment plus their body weight to get them out. But, the number one thing is being a team player.
Sure. I would add team character too, just your character as a person, mm-hmm. Somebody that people can rely on. Mm-hmm. And then also how are you as a deputy, mm-hmm. and how do you interact with folks in the office? How do you conduct investigations? How are you overall as a deputy in the office? And then do you go out and seek training? Mm-hmm. So that would be another thing that
initiative and things like that.
Absolutely. Initiative, going out and getting training to show that you want to be a part of the team, that you're going out and trying to improve yourself. I think those are all important traits and things that we look at.
Okay. Very good. So you get selected for the TRU team. What's next? Where do I go after that?
Training.
And what's that look like?
80 hours of training, and we do it through the Omaha Police Department. Okay. They've been very gracious and open with allowing us to come to their 2-week training course. So okay. We've done most of our training through them, mm-hmm. but we have also sent members to the Nebraska State Patrol out in Grand Island. So we will send members to either or, and to get that training. And then after that, then it's more training, trying to find that specialty that you want to do on the team and that we have availability for, and then we continue to send people to more training.
It's probably worth noting, are there any, we call it a tactical response unit, SWAT team, those terms are kind of interchangeable for the most part. Are there any agencies in Nebraska that have full-time tactical members?
Yes.
And would that be Omaha? And
I don't think Omaha has reached a full-time team yet.
Okay.
I know there's been discussions, last I heard, but if you look at Las Vegas Metro
okay.
and LAPD, some of the bigger metro areas do have full-time teams.
Okay. So elsewhere in the country, but as far as Nebraska goes,
Omaha does not have a full-time team at this time, but they have enough members that they have people who are on call, who are off call and things, because they get they have a lot of narcotics warrants. Mm-hmm. And so that way, as you can imagine, you can't sit at home and have a few beers if you're on call and ready to go. And that's another thing, I don't think people understand is when you're on with these tactical teams, you don't just, you got to remember, you can get called out in the middle of the night. And I tell you, if you keep calling in and say, hey, I'm out of town all the time, or hey, I drank too many beers, eventually it's going to come down to, well,
we can't count on you.
We can't count on you. Yeah. And so those are the things that, it's, you got to be dedicated and want to do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's just a good perspective for people to have, because maybe it's a good news, bad news that we don't have a high enough need like Las Vegas or some of these other places, but when we're talking, these tactical units, this is not, we don't just have a room of people sitting around waiting for the bell to go off.
No.
It's this is a duty above and beyond what their normal day-to-day job is.
Yeah, we're classified as a part-time team. So we have deputies every day who are either off duty, sleeping during the day because they work nights, or we have deputies that are on during the day, serving various functions within the office, from patrol, civil, criminal, etc.
The one good thing, though, I would say about our office is, when that call comes out, everybody through all the divisions do what they have to do so those members can get there to that call out. And sometimes we have to call in people on overtime just to work patrol because we've lost too many of them on that. So,
well, how, for your citizen in Lancaster County, how would you say that the tactical response unit makes Lancaster County safer?
Well, we have the ability to bring not only manpower, but equipment. A lot of great equipment that we've been fortunate enough to acquire to a scene. And when we show up on scene, not only through our training and the equipment that we have at the location, but our ability to resolve it successfully and minimize any injuries to people that are at the scene. And I think that's the most important thing is over the years, we've acquired so much equipment that we're not taking unnecessary risks.
Yeah. Sheriff, when Jeremy says resolve successfully, what does successfully, look like in your mind? What?
That means everybody goes home safe at night.
Okay. Citizens,
cops, bad guys.
Yep.
Home may be different for them than their normal residence, but everybody goes where they need to be safely.
But that's our goal.
Without injury, you bet.
Yeah,
you bet.
We've got a lot of tools and tactics and equipment, but they're all things that we hope to not have to use, right? I mean, if we're going to use them, we're using them to hopefully be able to achieve that successful resolution, at least as peaceful as the suspect will allow.
We give them every opportunity to be able to come out safe.
Yeah.
And that is always their option, and they are the ones who are going to end up making the opposite choice on that part, because we will do everything we can. But at some point, we do not have control over what those individuals do. And we do have the equipment and the things that if that choice by them is made, that the situation will be resolved. And again, it's our hierarchy who is the most important on that whole list. And that's how the situation will go down.
I think it's important too, when we bring all this equipment to a scene, we're just not pulling out and just using it.
Right.
There's legalities involved. And so that's where I'm sitting with the team commander in the command post, and we're constantly evaluating what's taking place based on information that's being provided to us over the radio by the team commander, or the team leader, and the assistant team leader. And then as we're evaluating, we're making determinations where this equipment fits and being able to use it. And then, we have we're very fortunate that the chief deputy, with all his years of experience, we can reach out to him and we can consult and make the determination when it's appropriate to use certain pieces of equipment, because we don't want to use it inappropriately and then cause problems for us down the road.
Well, there's another thing too people need to understand, just because somebody barricaded, let's say there's an individual who barricades who's never had anything violent whatsoever. It's for a felony, but it's a bad check. That doesn't always require the tactical unit to end up going to those types of calls, because when you send out a tactical, you're upping the ante, the use of force right then and there by having them be present. And so that's the reason why when Jeremy was talking about they met the level, is the individual has to have a history of violence and the means to carry that out, or there's a likelihood that they can. So those are the different things is, we're making decisions on using the tactical team. We're not just going in on everybody who's hiding under a bed with a misdemeanor warrant and bring our TAC team out.
And I think that's a point worth making. I think there are some that feel that it's a provocative move anytime that we send the TRU team out. So I think to your point, we're not sending the team on everything, and it has to meet certain criteria.
Right.
And I know, Jeremy, you're also, an instructor with de-escalation and things like that.
Yes.
And I know that that's an important, just like we have a lot of physical tools that are on our vests and on our belts and things like that. We've got a lot of mental tactics and tools at our disposal. And I think de-escalation is one of the first ones we reach for.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, our negotiator, Investor John Brady, who's one of our deputies, he's been through numerous courses and conferences involving negotiation. And a lot of that is based on some of the de-escalation models. And so absolutely, he's either in the command post with us or he is up front with the members trying to resolve the situation just by talking to somebody and reassuring them that it will be okay and that we will get them the help that they need.
Yeah, the best choice is to come out.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give a shout out to John. He's been doing this for several years now, and it's more than likely that he will talk somebody out than it is that he won't. There has been a few that we ended up having to do different tactics, but most of the time he does a great job. And like I said earlier, it's time talking tactics, and boy, being able to talk them out is a good negotiator's worth their weight in gold.
Yeah. As we wrap up here, we're fortunate in Lancaster County that we technically not only have ours, but also LPD's SWAT team, mm-hmm. and then technically the State Patrol's headquarter troop SWAT team. So how does our interaction go with some of those other partner agencies and training and operations and things like that?
Oh, it's been awesome. I've been on the team in various functions or capacities since 2003-04, and we have worked great with LPD. We've trained with them throughout the years, and I think since we got the armored vehicle, mm-hmm. We talk about the MRAP in 2013, and then moving forward to the Bearcat, we have continued to improve our relationship with LPD, and we work well. And when we show up to a scene or they show up on our call, we're working the call, and mm-hmm. we're working it together. We're trying to use all of our manpower and our equipment together. There's no egos. The egos are checked at the door, and we're working to resolve that situation.
Yeah, it's be like a day like today. It's going to be 102 degrees out. You're out there with all your equipment on. It doesn't take long for you to be, to the point you're drained. Mm-hmm. And we are able to, and so is the Lincoln Police Department, make a phone call real quick and be able to have more resources come in and help so that we can relieve our people, and stay on to the situation.
The Nebraska State Patrol a couple of years ago had a shooting in Cass County that was active, mm-hmm. and they called for our armored vehicle. They already had theirs at the scene, but they needed a second piece. And so two of us drove out there, and we showed up, and where do you need us? How do you want us to deploy? What can we do for you? And that's essentially what we did. We did what they asked us to do, and we stayed in our lane, and we worked great with them. And at the end of the day, the gentleman was arrested, and everybody went home safe.
Well, Jeremy, I think that kind of brings us up to speed. Any other closing thoughts or things with the TRU team?
I can't think of anything.
Well, I'm going to go on, and we're lucky enough that when I started in 95, 96, our tactics and how we went about doing it has changed drastically over the years, and it's become more, we do it safer. Mm-hmm. And I'm so proud that, the sheriff has allowed our team to continue with that kind of training, keep us up to date. So we are one of the most modernized tactical units probably in the Midwest, if not the whole United States. And when you choose to have a tactical team, it costs money, yeah. But to have it, you have to spend it so that you keep up on everything, because if you don't, it becomes a liability mm-hmm. to the individuals who are on it, to the agency, to the whole, all the citizens. So that is one thing I'm so proud that we are up to date, we are modern, we have the best equipment and the training, and when we show up, we do know what to do and how to handle these situations.
Well, and credit to you guys on the team because you do really put in the work, and I think it's
they do.
From the organization to the time that goes that's spent putting into training and putting everybody through reps and really just having that preparation, because it is something that if we're going to use it, it's a bad day, and something has gone seriously wrong in Lancaster County. But I think it's a little bit of safety and security for people to know that we are equipped to handle most any situation tactically that comes up, and that we can do that relatively quickly.
The way it was explained to me in one training is the tactical team is the 911 for the regular police when something's gone awry. And
True.
That's who comes out and does that. And I also want to add, we're doing monthly training all the time. We don't just go to specialty training and not do anything. We're doing that at least once a month, if not more.
Yeah, I would add, just besides the 80 hours that they get in SWAT school, we're training every month. And that averages out to roughly about 1,100 hours a year. And that doesn't count for all the specialty training that they have to go to every year or recertify every few years. So there's a lot of hours that are put in by these members, regardless of the weather. And they're constantly training, they're putting the hours in, and they're professional about it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Jeremy, we really appreciate all the work that you do for the TRU Team. Thanks for taking the time to sit down with us today, and appreciate everything you guys do.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes today's episode of the 902 podcast. We appreciate everyone tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and follow for future episodes of the 902 podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts. Be sure to reach out to us on social media. At LSO Nebraska is available on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and yes, now even on TikTok. You can also shoot us an email over at lso@lancaster.ne.gov. We'd love to hear from you. Hope to catch you next time on an episode of the 902 podcast. Thanks for listening.